You rolling? Hi, I'm Timothy Mitchell, the Practical Printer, and welcome to my print lab.
Hi, everybody. My name is Timothy Mitchell, and I am the Practical Printer, digital printing for practical people. I have a preoccupation with DTF. Direct-to-film is a huge industry. It's where one of the biggest segments of the growth industry is located from my industry, and decorative apparel is just huge. Now, decorative apparel is also, and DTF are also the Wild West. It has been a complete chaotic train ride for almost everybody involved. It's a disruptive technology. It's made a lot of the screen print and DTG people uneasy. I don't think that's valid. I think it fits in perfectly as a complement to both. And a serious shop will have screen printing, DTG, and DTF, and that's how things are going to work. But one of the other cool things about the whole experiment is this is really, in my opinion, and I think largely based on the evidence, this is driven by Chinese innovation. The companies that came with DTF to market were Chinese. All the early adopters were Chinese. The inventors and all of it came from China. And I still believe all of the innovation that you see across the industry is not coming from Japan or elsewhere or Europe. It's coming from China. It's a Chinese dominant industry with Chinese dominant technology, and I think it's still being driven that way. One of the biggest companies that I encountered when I was at a recent show, and I've been to a lot of DTF shows, was a company called Cobraflex. Now, they came onto my radar through a friend of mine named Ray Work, who worked at DuPont, and Ray said, hey, you need to check these guys out because they formed a full partnership with DuPont. Now, they were also experimenting with a really innovative form of powderless ink. We'll discuss that on a later date. But the DTF industry now had somebody who was manufacturing everything to their spec. They were utilizing Epson 3200 series heads, and then they were also doing it with DuPont inks. So now I saw somebody who was putting all the pieces together and taking the refinements that were going to be necessary from a chaotic Chinese market and applying it to the United States. A little long of a prelude, but that introduces my guest here today. So I have today Jim Lemmer and Chris Breazeale, sorry. His last name is spelled, everyone butchers it, Chris, I know that, and I'm guilty now too, from Cobraflex Printers. Cobraflex Printers, in my opinion, built the most remarkable portfolio in the industry. It's the most comprehensive and complete. If you see their booth at a trade show and you look around, you'll see why. It's all of theirs and in every category that DTF has. By a comparison, the Japanese have a total paucity of products. So gentlemen, welcome to the Practical Printer Show. Sorry about the long introduction, but I'm also kind of introducing the concept here. Welcome and thank you for joining me on the Practical Printer.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely. Look, guys, you seem to do something really different. From what I understand, you guys largely manufacture and design almost all your own equipment. Is that correct? And
Yes.
You're in Arizona, right?
Arizona, yes.
Can you tell me a little bit about your manufacturing? Like, how does that work?
So basically what we do is, it's really hard to get all products here in the United States. So what we do is we have the majority of our stuff flat sent to us in the United States. We complete wiring, complete all the other aspects of it here in the United States. We're required to do about 75% here. In some cases we don't.
Why are you required?
We are actually, so Epson USA actually requires us to do about 70% to 75% here in the United States of a build cycle. So
Fill in the gap for me. Why does Epson require that? Is it because you're a printhead dealer for them, or?
Yes, we are an authorized printhead dealer for the
cool.
side. Yeah.
So all right. So you and Epson have a partnership, and Epson says in order for you to do this, you have to make 75% of it here.
Yes, yeah. So what they do is they come in about every 6 months, look at our warehouses. It's not a giant warehouse, but we manage, properly. We got plenty of containers outside. We pull the parts in, build the parts here in the United States, or build the printer finalized in the United States, except for our stealth, which is probably 95% built here in the United States.
Okay.
Simply because there are products that just aren't made in the United States anymore, like extruded aluminum and things of that nature. So what we do is we make the clear effort to try to do as much as we can here in the United States. If anybody tells you they do 100% of it here in the United States, I'm gonna say that's not true.
Okay.
You know, even our partners with the ink side, there are components in the ink, I'm sure, that can't be made in the United States. So what we do is we try and make a huge effort to try to do as much as we can here in the U.S.
A big
Okay,
part
that's
too on
fantastic.
and a big part too on R&D is, we do engineer on staff and do a lot of the whole build of that first product. And if there's components that we just cannot do here, obviously we have no choice. But we build it here, and a lot of times that that R&D piece of machinery isn't worth putting out there. But sometimes people want to buy that one, and then we swap it out once we get ramped up in production.
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Here's something that is very important to me with DTF and things that I believe that other companies completely overlook. And I think it's a huge detriment. For me, DTF is a workflow. The workflow begins with the software. Okay, there's certain industry dominant softwares that are very good with the DTF market, and particularly the way that white ink being dominant has to be laid down. And then you have, because you have to use a white layer for almost anything, the whole point is the white creates the base color for all your other inks laying down onto. Take a black t-shirt and you have to be able to have the white as the basis so you're not just absorbing into the black. So your white now becomes your white, just like you would print on a piece of paper or an adhesive vinyl. Then you have the printer. Then you have the ink itself, which is going to vary. Everyone has different ink chemistry. And then you have the powder, the film, because the film has to be receptive to the ink, and then the ink has to be receptive with the powder. And then that goes through a shaker.
Yes.
And then the shaker ultimately is kind of where the magic happens, and you have a finished product coming out of the shaker. And then you have the finishing process, in some cases, a cutter. So if you want to automate, you want to have things pre-cut for you, so you don't have to do it by hand. And then you want to have a good heat press, where you ultimately transfer it and put it onto the t-shirt or the hat or whatever you're doing. That's what I loosely call the workflow.
Yes.
This is a workflow intensive process. There's a lot of other things I do, like I can go downstairs right now and print something to a latex printer, and it's latex printer and sticker, right? And then maybe a cutter, but there's no complex workflow here. It's just done. You guys have a whole workflow. And the way I view DTF is if you don't take into account that workflow and how it works, any point of that workflow becomes a weak link. Like let's say you have a shaker that is malfunctioning. Well, the rest of your workflow is useless.
Yes.
You're not doing anything. You're not printing. It's all of no value. What I really appreciate what you guys did is you went and said, we're going to build the whole workflow, software, profiles, ink, powder, film, printer, shaker, cutter, heat transfer. And we're going to test everything with workflow in mind.
Uh-huh.
Whereas nobody else does that. If they do it superficially. Even the Japanese OEMs, they don't make shakers. So they're going to use all these different shakers, except maybe Roland at least tried to narrow it down through a recommendation of using one of these two shakers. Films, does Epson have a film? Does Mamaki have a film? Do they test with the same film? Do their profiles work with the same film? Because coatings on films are different. I know that from the inkjet days. You guys are one of the few companies that have the workflow mastery, and I'm a workflow guy. So tell me a little about your approach to workflows and why that's important, because you obviously get it, or you wouldn't have the whole workflow built out like you have.
So let me tell you how we started. Okay, when we started doing this, we did it from a reverse aspect. Okay, this is a heat transfer. What we tried to do is we tried to develop our film, our powders, everything based on how we heat transfer. And as you know, from a heat transfer standpoint, you have polyester, you have cottons, you have heavy, thick stuff. So what we did was we worked backwards, right? So one thing we wanted to accomplish was number one, 1 second to 2 second press times on polyester, so it doesn't damage or window into the polyester. 2 to 3 seconds on your cottons, so it doesn't window but still sticks. So and high pressure. So our theory is we go at about 120 psi on our heat presses, fast and heavy, hot peel. Now going backwards through the system, we needed to know what the first cure, second cure, and all of these aspects come from the film, and the powder. So what we've tried to do is, from a reverse aspect, we see what it's going to do on a polyester, which is, make sure it doesn't bleed, make sure we're not overheating it. Where a lot of people have gone the reverse process, and they say, I cringe when I see people say it takes 30 seconds to press this heat press thing.
Too long.
And what happens is you get bleeding, you get ghosting, you get all this stuff just destroying clothes. So we did it from a reverse aspect. Okay. So number one, we wanted to make sure that our heat pressing process was good. Then we blended our powders to the point where it's going to cure at a lower temp. So therefore we're not yellowing the films or bleeding off anything in there, or what we like to call making it crispy, right? There's nothing worse than taking a heat transfer and listening to it, and it sounds like, you're crumpling up tinfoil. So reverse process, going back into the printer, then we went back and said, okay, let's work this way with DuPont. DuPont has been a big, big plus to what we've done from an ink standpoint. And then originally we had crunchy ink, we had to cure it so high in order to hit the temperature on the film to cure the ink. Once we've got that down, then we went to thanks to DuPont, we went to Neo Stampa and Edit, who completely poo-pooed the fact that, what do I want to do with DTF? It's never going to be around long. They're an old sublimation software. Reality is they came back and said, wow, it's taken off. And thank God they actually started working with us to try to make things happen, from our inks to our films to our color expanders, all these different types of materials. And now a lot of people are actually migrating to that Neo Stampa and Edit because it's so stable. And, it's not like some of the other softwares out there that, that converted kind of haphazardly to DTF because they needed to do it. I mean, believe me, we've tried them all out. We've tried all systems out, but the most stable to us, ease of use and everything, was Neo Stampa and Edit. And as we go along, we add cutters, and they add a cutter for us, and they add, they'll add all different types of items for us. So it's been a real good relationship, and our whole workflow is based on trials and trials before we release. I mean, we went 8-9 months before we released before we released the Neo Stampa. We went 3 or 4 months before we got what we needed in the formulation for DuPont, and then it took another 6 months to get it commercial. So that was one of the things that we felt we were going to be real successful at, is it's R&D. I mean, in R&D, as you know, you win and you lose. And we certainly can say we've lost and we won.
Yeah.
But we always talk about the products that we're promoting and working hard on. It's a system. So whether we're at a trade show or a customer's buying our machine, they're buying a system from us, and the better we can make that system for them, the easier it is for everybody. I mean, they're more profitable. Their product is top notch. It's color profiled. They're hitting those colors job after job, printing that same job, week after week. And along with that, the problems, aren't there. We're printing on the same films. We're printing on, we have the same inks. So, the color profiles and that software is, like Jim said, it's the best in the industry for sure.
I completely concur with the direction you've gone in. I like the fact that you started from the heat press and worked backward. That makes a lot of sense. And I can tell you with a high degree of confidence, Chris, you were saying to me earlier that the whole industry is largely driven by greed.
Mm-hmm.
And kind of, I would translate that a little bit by the industry is driven by, it's kind of funny. You have a new industry that came to the United States. Everyone became interested overnight. And almost immediately it seemed like every grifter in America crawled out from under a rock and tried to make a quick buck on this.
Mm-hmm.
And in the process, a whole bunch of people felt misled. And they spent a bunch of money on things that ultimately clogged or didn't work or ended up being disappointed. And the reason why is because there wasn't any ownership of the process. And there was no process ownership.
Absolutely.
Nobody said, hey, all these steps here, we own them. And what we're giving you is a turnkey system where we've worked out all the kinks. We've worked out all the glitches. We know that this film, because you might have 10 different films you test, and every film will work differently with a different set of inks. In your case, you establish here's our DuPont inks. Obviously, I think the DuPont ink was a huge breakthrough because you have a major ink manufacturer who makes their own inks, who stands behind it and says, we have the best ink on the market. And coincidentally, the price is considerably less than most of your OEM inks, and it's better. Now you can test the rest of your system. Now you can say, okay, let's pair this ink with this film. Oh, not that great. Let's pair this ink with this film. Okay, this film is great. So now you have a film and say, oh, well, that film might be a little expensive. Do we have another one that's more economical that performs the same? So then you start locking in your pieces. And that can be done once you know your ink. Now you have your film. Now you have film and ink. Now you build your color work around it. Now you look at powder. Now you look at all of that together with the various heat settings. Oh, it's taking too long. People aren't going to like that. Let's change this. So you have like 40 variables that you go through to save the customer from doing it. If somebody else is selling a piece, a patchwork system, we're going to take this Epson printer or this Mamaki printer and pair it with God knows what shaker, and then they race to the bottom on ink and film, and they use the canned profiles. What they're going to get is a very inferior product that I can tell you right now, because I have a lot of friends who have come to me that are, big in the ad and marketing world that said, hey, I just bought a whole bunch of DTF t-shirts and they're all coming off in the wash. I'm like, well, welcome to the race to the bottom DTF world. Yes, DTF is capable of making very high quality t-shirts that don't peel off, but whoever's doing it has to nail down the workflow. And if you're just buying it turnkey, it's way easier to nail it down than if you've got to piece it all together yourself and you don't know what you're doing and you don't have any help. Because everyone is just selling one piece of the workflow. And that puts it on the customer to figure it all out. And that's where I think what you guys did makes a lot of sense, to give people a turnkey system. In addition, from what I've seen at the show, you guys have the most innovative products. Hey, you want neon inks? We've got those, all made by DuPont. So I just
I'll
admire
correct
kind of
you
what
real
you
quick.
did. It became clear to me that between the portfolio and your testing and your workflow focus, you're head and shoulders above anyone else I've seen in the, full-on market.
Well, I'm going to correct you real quick. The neons are the only thing that isn't made by DuPont yet.
Okay, all
Still,
right.
still testing. But we are they make our color expanders,
Orange and green.
and DuPont is testing for us the neons yet.
Okay.
There's nobody in the United States that actually makes neons yet. So we do, suffer the fact that we do have to buy them from a reputable source in China.
One more point on some of that too, on that workflow, and maybe this could be another podcast too as well, is the environment.
Yes.
I can't stress enough.
Oh, no, you're right.
I mean, when it comes to DTF printing and everybody jumping in the game, you can have the best workflow. Sometimes it blows me away at how amazing, I feel like our equipment is, and hearing about a customer early on days at a trade show or somewhere else on a phone call, how excited they are to get in the game, and then they don't follow directions on their environment. And the best workflow in the world isn't going to help them, and it takes
Sure.
it takes failure for some people to finally get on board. Those are hard moments because we're both crossing bridges back and forth until somebody finally says, okay, I'm trying what you say and it's working. So workflow is super important, but that environment stands out.
Yes.
Okay, I agree with you. I actually look a lot at DTF in the same environmental category as dye sublimation printing.
Yes.
You're in most cases you're printing to a transfer paper. The paper then goes to a calendar press, and as most people tell you, the calendar press is absolutely critical to your success in dye sub, and that's why people gravitate towards Monty and Cleaverick, because you have to have that be very even in the heat. And then after that, you don't see the final product until you've gone through a whole bunch of steps. And that final product, you have to then work backward and go, what am I missing? And environment is very important in a dye sublimation and workflow. I mean, you have to control your environment. Humidity and temperature matters. You'll get different results. So what you're saying is you have very clear instructions to your customers,
Yeah.
many of whom, in their defense, they're new.
Yes.
You know, they read about this and they want to do it, and they're new to digital printing entirely, which is new to environment control, and they're new to printer maintenance,
Hmm.
both of which are necessary.
Printer maintenance.
Printer maintenance. Yeah.
Printer maintenance.
Yeah.
And anything with white ink degree requires a degree of maintenance.
Yes.
And it sounds to me, though, you guys are very happy with your white as far as like its stability. You know, there's
It's
a
one
lot
of
of
the
other
best
white
things
inks
we
on the
can
market
get.
that you
Yeah.
read the fine print on even a lot of the Japanese OEMs, and they're saying, hey, we recommend you take this ink out every day or two and shake it. Well,
Right.
what do I do when I go on vacation for 2 weeks?
Look how many print heads we have not,
Yeah.
had any issues with.
Yeah. I will tell you, we went from when it comes to print heads, right? Before we were using a Chinese brand ink, right? Uh, we went through what, 70, $80,000 worth of print heads.
Easy.
Changed
Easy.
to DuPont. Once we changed to DuPont, I would say we were hitting about $6,000 a year. Then, there are people.
Huge difference.
We felt comfortable enough to add a print head to our warranty. So you get every printer you buy from us. If it's a 4-head, we give you 1 head per year for free. So after the warranty, of course, you purchase it, but we feel comfortable enough that 50% of the printers that we have in the field have not even used the print head, just because the quality and they keep up with their maintenance. They make sure that everything is taken care of. We have a schedule that basically says here, daily, weekly, monthly, all these maintenance things, and we can tell. Somebody calls up our service ticket system and it says, hey, we got a clogged print head. And we ask, when's the last time you changed the filter on just the white? And the one good thing about the inks that we use from DuPont that were formulated for us is basically there is we don't use filters on any of our CMYKs. So our last line of defense is our damper. So we ask that you change the damper every 3 months or so, which is really good. And once you do that and you keep your regiment, that printer will run. We've got printers in the field now for 3-4 years, and we have one that hasn't changed a print head. So there's multiple of those people that they maintain. And we tell, Chris and I go back and forth with this all the time, is the people we want to deal with understand large format machines, because what the maintenance schedule has to be on that. Got to take care of it.
Yeah, I would assume that your CMYK is pretty close to die sub.
Pretty close.
Very, very easy.
Yeah.
And then the white ink is really the one that requires most of your attention.
It does. And we tell dampers and caps, right? Capping stations sometimes if you keep the people that have to change their caps more often, keep their machine clean. That's a piece of rubber. You're going to put a rag on it. You're going to wear it down, right? That's the difference between like a Maki or whatever. Maki does the cleaning and does this and all that. I mean, it takes away that it's slow. It takes away the fact that you actually have to clean your capping station, and maintenance. Own the maintenance. That's what we tell people. Just own the maintenance, and you're going to be just fine. So.
Hey, one thing I heard about yours, which I was talking to a guy at Reese, and I said, what's the thing you like most about the Cobraflex printers? And he said, well, I'll tell you right now, what I show in my demos, what my customers love, is I can do really fast transfer hot peel. He goes, with their system and with their ink and film, I'm like dropping 3 seconds.
Yeah.
I said,
Definitely.
really? He goes, yeah, your speed at the heat transfer press is excellent, is what he said. And it's very, very good. And to
Certain
me,
brands,
that's
1
work.
second.
Yeah, that's workflow.
Mm-hmm.
That's workflow. And so many other people who are just selling a component. Hey, I sell a shaker, I sell a printer. They're not building out the whole workflow, because that takes a lot of time and effort, right? You have to, okay, here's my shaker, can't change that. Here's my printer, can't change that. Here's my ink, can't change that. Here's the film, here's the powder, here's the rip. Now let's build the whole thing through and make sure we get our 3-second peel. Yeah, we built the whole thing and it's 8 seconds, it's 10, it's 20, okay? Or hot peel doesn't work very well at all. Okay, now you got to rethink that entire workflow. It's not easy. So most people don't even bother. There is no bother in that respect. And you guys going through it, getting those really fast times means that how many t-shirts you do an hour is one of the key pieces of objective criteria on the success or failure, because you might print really fast, but now you have a really long transfer time, and that's interfering with the overall productivity goals. Okay, printer is fast, but your transfer stinks.
It's hard to watch videos when somebody's pressing a shirt for 15 seconds.
It is.
And
Scares me.
And then they give it a second press for 10 more seconds. I cringe.
I know.
I'm thinking,
Yeah.
you know, rub it together, put it by your ear, hear how loud it is, and I mean it's degradation to that print. Really, most garments, when you start doing that, you're going to get that dye sublimation that's going to come through it, and there's no growth, like you said, workflow wise, as far as production.
Yeah. And the longer you cure that adhesive, the less it's going to stick to the shirt. You know, you want to cure
Okay.
that. I mean, there's a two base cure on an adhesive, right? So the first cure is going to be
In the dryer.
in the dryer, which we want to keep at a low temperature, and that keeps this soft, right? So then it comes out, and once you come out of the dryer, then you go into the heat press. That's your second cure. So if you have to heat it if you have the heat at 400 degrees, you've overbaked it, you end up peeling off, and if you go down to a lower temperature, just barely melting the powder. I mean, I look at it as a science, right? You know, there are people that sometimes they say, well, I'm under curing and I got a little bit of moisture. And I tell them that moisture sometimes will carry your print longer because you're not baking everything out of it, right? If you still got moisture, if you think about it, you still got moisture in that transfer, just like in screen printing. If you over-cure screen printing, what happens? It breaks. Same thing as our inks and our powders, right? You cure it to the point where it's not necessarily over-cured and not necessarily under-cured. Making it melt, you just want to then get it into the heat press. That, if you got a moisture feeling, it ain't gonna hurt anything. It's not gonna show up on your shirt. It's actually gonna help your process. It's gonna keep it softer in the dryer longer. You know, those are the type of
Interesting.
things that people look at.
I look at pressure.
Cool.
Pressure, when we did a lot of testing early on with DuPont too, we had our own wash facility here. We no longer do it anymore, but there was a lot going on, and the bridging of the fibers across the weave of the shirts, whether even, I mean, a cotton shirt even, or polyester, if there wasn't enough pressure, you could see what would happen. It would bridge across it and not kind of go down into the valleys of it. That made a huge difference, and so we really strive on the pressure too. I think is a super key component, no matter what we're doing.
Okay. There's a couple of things that I want to bring up, and we're going a little long, which is fine. It's an interesting conversation. It seems to me, and I have a standing bet with people. I used to argue with with Mamaki and everyone else on this, and Roland and now Epson. 36 inch is a stupid size for a printer for this industry. And so, stupid. And you know why Epson did it? Because they had a 36-inch printer already in their portfolio, and they just converted it. Okay? With no regard for the DTF industry's already existing standards, of which they're like 5 years late to the market. Then you have, Mamaki did the same. Theirs is 32, and Roland's is 30.
Yeah, and the
And
standard.
I'm like, yeah, the industry,
core-
the standard is 24.
Yeah, but yeah, absolutely. But the standard is this: 54.5 inches is what a standard DTF core is. Okay.
There we go.
So think about those numbers, right? Can you take and get 236s out of there? Nope.
Nope. So
Can
your
you get-
yield, I knew it was all about yield.
It's
That's what it
about
is.
yield.
It is. So if you got a drop core or a short core or something like that, 220, we do it. We slit them down sometimes. So it's 224s and a 30 and a 13, and it's still throw away 3 inches.
Yeah, still tossing stuff away.
So
Yeah.
we with us, we do practical. Practical is 224s and a 13 inch, and we don't do. If I was to do, people ask us all the time, can you make film for a Mamaki? Unfortunately, I would lose money making film for Mamaki.
Yeah, well, here's the funny part. They didn't think about any of that. That was an afterthought. Hey, where are we going to get film? I'm like, what? Well, when you make the printer, and the simple answer was, I know it's a 32-inch printer, but just run a 24-inch workflow.
Yeah,
Get a
absolutely.
24-inch
Exactly.
shaker. Why are you trying to have somebody make you a 32-inch shaker?
Right.
That's an oddball outlier shaker.
And
If you had 60% of the market, maybe you could get somebody to go and make that in volume.
right.
But the truth is, once you get away from the Japanese OEMs, all of which are different sizes, and now they're all trying to get people to make, like Epson's out there trying to get its dealers to source 36-inch shaker. Well, there's two problems with a 36-inch shaker. One, it doesn't fit in anybody's doorway unless you
Yep.
make an inferior shaker, right? And then second is, it's going to cost double. Like, because somebody now has to create something specialty for one brand of printer in an industry in which 80% of all the printers sold are focused on a 24-inch workflow.
Absolutely.
The
Right.
competitiveness,
So,
the competitiveness with just the 24 is already difficult to try to beat when they make an oddball size.
yes.
Right.
And my example was, it would be like I went to Home Depot and said, "Hey, where are all the 4x8 boards?" And they said, "Well, ours are now 4.5 by 9 foot boards." I said, "You know what the problem is? It doesn't fit in the bed of my pickup truck anymore. Nice job, guys. I'm going to
Right.
Lowe's." Like,
Well, and that's where we always go back to the premise of what this whole conversation is about, and it's more about the system than the printer. So Mamaki, Roland, Epson all sell a printer. We sell a system.
And we said it for a long time.
Yeah.
Yep.
you sell a system.
Yes.
I think that's a good place to close. And honestly, I want to have you guys on regularly because I think you provide people who think in systems, think in final product. The final
Yes.
product is somebody walking around with a t-shirt that has a soft hand on it, that looks great, that washes multiple times successfully, and they go, "I love my custom made t-shirt. Nobody else has a t-shirt like this. I'm an individual. This is my cool logo." And nobody has one like it because it can all be made exactly to order. And that's really cool about DTF. But it has to, from that point, you have to think through all the steps backward that made it.
Yes.
And that might be 40 points. And when you guys go through, because you own all the pieces, you think through all the 40 points. Somebody else who's just making a printer is saying, "I only have 3 points to think of. What about the other 37?
Well,
That's the
you got to
dealer's
stay
problem.
consistent.
That's the distributor's problem. That's the customer's problem."
Exactly.
The customer only wants things consistent.
Yes.
That's how they keep their business moving forward.
You guys sell the workflow, you sell the system. And when you sell the system, you understand the system. And if you understand the system, your knowledge level is far, far superior to somebody who's just selling a component in the system.
Yes.
That's my thoughts on the matter. I think you guys have demonstrated that you agree with me.
Yes. Absolutely.
Definitely.
Right. Congratulations, fellas. Thank you for both being on. Chris, Jim, you guys are gems. And I will see you both at Printing United. And
Yes.
hopefully we'll have you on the show between then because I have a whole bunch of things on DTF. I'm very focused on DTF right now, and I think there's a lot of things for us to talk about in the industry. And also, I want to hear about all your new developments. You guys
Absolutely.
have some
Sounds
new
good.
film that you're working on. You have new inks you're working on, a lot of other things, because I think you're one of the big innovators in the market. And
Yeah.
a lot of other people just wait for the market to happen and then they do it, years later. I think you guys are far and away ahead and one of the early adapters, the developers, the R&D people, and are driving the coolest things that are happening in the DTF market.
I will say this.
So congratulations.
I will
Thank
say
you.
this. If you don't fail, you don't win.
And we have failed quite a few times. So
You have taken
we have
big
won
look.
quite
I
a
give
bit.
you credit. You know what? There's a guy out there right now that just took a company down named Benny Landa, right? And Benny has giant, huge brass balls, and he has failed and he has succeeded tremendously. And you will not succeed tremendously unless you fail too. It goes with the territory. So
Yeah.
you're in
You can't
good
win every
company
time.
out there, guys. Steve Jobs, all of them, they've all taken a dive. So you hung in there and you kept at it, and you have great products. And a lot of the stuff you learn in failure, honestly, and they all say the same thing. A lot of the things you learn in failure
Yes.
come up later as a huge card in your favor.
Yes.
Well, this industry still has a long way to go.
A long way.
A long way. You guys are you're in the first innings here, so it's a long game. Thank you very much, fellas.
Thank
Take
you.
care. Have a
Yep,
great
thank you.
weekend.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.